We're back. This is the Monday edition of Community Watch and Comment. I'm your host, Gloria Minott. You're listening to WPFW Radio, 89.3 FM. Coming up, the Council for Court Excellence's new report called Beyond Second Chances, Returning Citizens, Re-Entry Struggles and Successes in the District of Columbia. June Kress and Emily Tatro when we come back. We're back. It's Monday. This is Community Watch and Comment. I'm your host, Gloria Minott. My guests, June Kress is the executive director of the, all right, let me start over. I'm totally out of it this time. But she's going to join me in a moment to talk about the work of the Council for Court Excellence. That's June Kress. She's joined by Emily Tatro. She is a policy analyst with the organization and was one of the principal investigators for the report that I mentioned earlier. Ladies, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Gloria.
Good morning.
Good morning to you again. So, June, the Council for Court Excellence, what exactly do you do?
We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit civic organization that has been around since 1982, and our mission is to enhance the justice system in the District of Columbia to serve the public more equitably. And how we do that is to identify and propose solutions by collaborating with diverse stakeholders. And with them, we conduct research, we advance policy, we educate the public, and we increase civic engagement. So talking with your listeners or talking with you is very much a part of our mission to educate the public. Our focus areas are several. We're very involved in projects related to civil justice, youth justice, justice education, and criminal justice. And the report that we're going to tell your listeners about very much falls in the area that we've been working on for about a decade, and that is the area of reentry, and it falls under our criminal justice focus area. Our objective for the last 10 years has been to remove or at least lessen the collateral consequences of a criminal conviction, a situation that many District of Columbia residents are facing today. So with that brief introduction, why don't I turn it over to Emily to tell your listeners about the report.
All right. Go right ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Gloria. We found when we were doing our research that there are 1 in 22 adults in D.C. who are currently under correctional control, meaning that they're in jail, in prison, or under community supervision, and about 1 in 8 adults, probably 67,000 adults in D.C. have a criminal record. So this is a problem that affects a huge part of our community here in D.C. And we took a look at what reentry means for people coming home and the challenges that are unique to people in D.C. There are a couple of things that people who are coming home from prison and jail in other states don't necessarily have to contend with. And one of them is that people are held so far away from home in federal prisons and really have a hard time maintaining family connections and connections to service providers that they need in order to gain the support they need to be successful when they're coming home.
When you did your report, you must have looked at the population here in the district. What is that composition like? Who is in our prisons and jails here in D.C.?
So the African-American population in D.C. is disproportionately in contact with the criminal justice system, even though just under half of D.C.'s population is black now. 9 in 10 people coming home from prison and jail are African-American. It also disproportionately affects men. About 96% of the people in the system are male, and also people who are mostly coming home to wards 5 and 7 and 8.
What are those wards again?
5 and 7 and 8.
Oh, and when these returning citizens come back to society, what are some of the challenges they face? And you talked about men being in the system, black men. What about women? What percentage are we talking about?
So DC's population is about 4% women, which is high compared to other places in the country. And certainly there are unique needs that women have coming home. They are often the primary caregivers of children, and so family reunification is really, really important. They also are more likely to have suffered trauma, have a trauma history, and have mental health needs that need to be addressed. They also, the housing situation is fairly dire for really everyone in D.C. because of the lack of affordable units, but it hits returning citizens particularly hard because it can be difficult to find housing when you have a criminal record, and it can also be very difficult to find family units for people who are coming home and need to take care of children.
Did you look at, because they're faced with a two-edged sword here, you've served your time, you've come back into society, you're not given a fair break because of your record. So how does one deal with that kind of prognosis?
It's very challenging, and the district has passed a couple of laws in the past few years to help people deal with this. They're known as ban-the-box laws, which means that people on employment applications can no longer ask up front whether you have a criminal record. It's a question that can only be asked after they've interviewed you for the position and made a conditional offer. D.C. also recently passed a ban-the-box law for housing applications, and if that is funded in this coming fiscal year's budget, that law will go into effect in October, and it'll do the same thing for rental housing applications. So for most units on the private market, they will not be able to ask up front whether someone has a criminal conviction, and advocates and returning citizens are certainly hoping that will ease some of the burden up front.
The DC's Office of the Mayor on Returning Citizen Affairs has not been able to achieve its mission, your report says, to coordinate and monitor service delivery to these citizens and make policy recommendations regarding them to the mayor, because there's a lack of funding. I just spoke with my first guest who said we have a surplus here in the city. Lots of money. So why can't these programs be funded?
Well, I think they can, and that's what we're hoping to achieve in this coming budget. We've been advocating with D.C. Council and with the Mayor's Office to get more funding for MORCA, the Mayor's Office on Returning Citizen Affairs. The CCE strongly believes that the agency, the office, needs to undergo a strategic planning process in order to really tease out what their priorities will be. And we hope that they begin to operate as a reentry hub, as a place where people can come home and be assessed and then connected to the services that they need most and sent out to the places, both nonprofits and government agencies in the city that are doing that work and providing those services. Councilmember Robert White recently sent a letter to the mayor requesting that 2 full-time employees be added to the budget for next year's budget for the MORCA office, and that's something that we certainly hope to see as a first step toward expanding that office and improving its services.
You're listening to the Monday edition of Community Watch and Comment. I'm your host, Gloria Minott. This is WPFW Radio. Emily Tatro is my guest. She's a policy analyst with the Council of Court Excellence, and we're talking about a report just released. Part of your report says that the D.C. criminal justice system is unique. In what way?
Well, because we are a federal district, we have a very bifurcated system. Since the 1997 Revitalization Act passed, and most of the pieces of our criminal justice system were taken over by the federal government. So it's unique that we have people prosecuting local crimes who are actually U.S. attorneys. It's unique that the judges presiding over those criminal cases are appointed by the president. And it's unique that we send people who are sentenced to a year or more out to federal prisons across the country instead of a local prison that we run here ourselves. And so that presents complications because we don't necessarily have the power on the local level to change the way that prosecutions are conducted. We don't have the ability to change where people are being held or the programming that they are or are not receiving at the BOP. And one of the biggest issues that we hear about from returning citizens is that the halfway houses that people come back to, Hope Village for men and Fairview for women, are both private facilities that are contracted by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And so we don't have control over those facilities either, and there have been many problems that have surfaced there over the last several decades that they've been running that we really haven't been able to attack.
How does the U.S. Parole Commission work in this city?
So the United States Parole Commission is a legacy system that's left over from when the federal government used parole, and that stopped in the late 90s, I believe. Their system was converted to processing DC cases in 2001, and they process our legacy cases. So anyone who was sentenced under our old system when we had parole, they do parole grant hearings for, and that's about 1,000 people that are left in that system. And then they also do parole revocation hearings for people who are sentenced under our new system, where there are determinate sentences. They're let out at a particular time to serve their community supervision time. But if they are accused of breaking the conditions of their release, then they're sent in front of the Federal Commission to have their supervision revoked.
Any surprises in putting this report together?
I'm sorry, did you say any surprises?
Yes, did anything surprise you?
I think it surprised us how intractable these issues have really been over the last few years, and what an opportunity we have in this moment. There's new leadership here in the district at the Mayor's Office on Returning Citizen Affairs for the D.C. Department of Corrections and the Metropolitan Police Department, and there's new leadership on the federal level as well. And so we're really hoping to take advantage of the opportunity that shift presents to shake things up and really take things forward.
Gloria, I think one other thing, it wasn't so much that we were surprised, but really opened up our eyes. The whole, this report, it doesn't just contain a lot of data and a lot of analysis, but we worked very hard to include the voices of real people in the report. There are pictures of people, there are quotes. We had focus groups, we met with folks, we did interviews. And what really comes through in the report are not only the enormous struggles that people face, but also the successes that some people have achieved in turning their lives around. But that I think is one of the most important parts of the report, that this is all about real people.
The report is called Beyond Second Chances. You just heard the voice of June Kress. She's the Executive Director of the Council for Court Excellence. And before that, you heard Emily Tatro. She's a policy analyst with the organization and was one of the principal investigators of the report. Would you give a website and any final word, June, before we conclude?
Yes, I'm glad to. The website is www.courtexcellence, that's one word, courtexcellence.org. You can download the report in its entirety, and also people can call our office, and we'll be happy to send copies of the report without charge. And that number is 202-785-5917.
June Kress, Emily Tatro, thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, take care.